Station! What's up, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. And I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sitdown. Now, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to watch this spoiler review. Oh, man. What a movie to talk about today. Going all in on a whole lot of spoiler goodies. You know the drill. Pull up a chair. Take a seat. It's time to finally dive in to all the spoilers on Mission Impossible Fallout. A movie so big, Seaman needed to do a little Tom Cruise running, a little hand-to-hand fighting action to get this video going. Oh, man. All right. Now, like I said, spoiler time. That means we're going to be dropping a real big one. So if you're not ready for it, then you leave. I'm giving you a chance right now. Get out while you can. Go on. Run on home. Get your computer. Find that non-spoiler review. Watch that one first. Then come on back after you've seen the movie. We can talk about all the goodies. All right. You're out? Did you get out? If you had to, did you get away? All right. It's time. We're going in. It's the big one. I had to wait. We were talking about Henry Cavill a little bit, but we couldn't talk about him too much. Now is the time, folks. This guy, oh man, he is so good. Are you ready for it? Are you ready? Wait. At being the bad guy. Oh my God, man. Dude, Henry Cavill, he showed up. He showed up in a big way. Oh man, he came ready to, lock and loaded, ready to go. And yes, I'm sure some of you were not completely shocked by that. But it's the way in which we find out about it, right? A lot of the trailers led us to believe that at some point Henry Cavill was going to be on the opposite side of Tom Cruise. But it looked like he was going to be CIA-oriented. We find out that he is working for Solomon Lane. Whew! My head spun, man. I did not see that one coming. And just, oh man, and then once you find out that he's bad, right? It comes, you start getting it right during a conversation with Angela Bassett where he produces a phone that at one point was broken from the actual Lark. And instead, he hands Angela Bassett a phone that is brand new and fully loaded to set up Tom Cruise to make him look like he's being Lark. That's when we start to be like, oh man, okay, there's something else going on with Henry Cavill. I was not ready for the Solomon Lane drop. Really, really cool stuff. And once you get that, oh man, then it's just, he just lays it on, man. He has just got the bad guy thing down pat. And it's great, man. He shines at being the bad guy in this movie in a way that's just so much fun to see Henry Cavill doing something that, you haven't normally seen Henry Cavill do. Now look, I know you're saying, well, Superman, a bad guy? Yes, Superman, a bad guy. And before you go and call me crazy, peep this, all right? Peep this. Look. Now, I've heard that, Henry Cavill isn't, the nicest dude. Offset. So, not shocking that maybe the bad guy stuff seems to suit him. Especially with that mustache. Oh, man, that mustache. So good to be a bad guy. But if you think I'm nuts, man, what was the best part about Justice League? You got Superman being bad. Bad Superman was the best part about the Justice League movie. Maybe Henry Cavill needs to be the bad guy. Now, I've also heard rumors, and not necessarily rumors, but I've heard Cavill, kind of say, I would like to do this. I heard other people say, oh, Cavill could be really good at this, taking over Bond. Now, like I said, I don't, I can see the allure, right? He's got the build, but I don't see it, man. I'd rather see Bond go to somebody like Idris Elba, or maybe another, actor of color. Change it up. I think the next time we get a new Bond, there's an opportunity for, the movie franchise to take a real big step and do something bold. Getting Henry Cavill would not be bold. But getting Henry Cavill to be a villain? Oh, he would be a great Bond villain. And toward the end of this movie, during the helicopter stuff, and we'll get to all the action, but he gets sprayed in the face by hot gas. So he ends up with this almost Two-Face-esque kind of burn on the side of his face. And when he shows up with that burn, oh my God, it just screams Bond villain. Sign me up. You get me a Henry Cavill versus whoever Bond is, I'm in. He holds his own, man, and he goes with toe to toe with Ethan Hunt, and that's not easy to do. Certainly not in a Mission Impossible movie. And he really gives Ethan a huge obstacle to get over. And then he has several looks in this movie that just scream villain. Right as it's finally coming out that he's a bad guy, he's trying to get away and he hops on an elevator, to which Cruise hops on the bottom and he's kind of hanging there. And he looks up and it's one of those old elevators so you can see right through it. And Cavill just kind of looks at him and like cocks his head a little bit to the side, and you just go, oh man, yeah. But then there's like another scene too when he's in one of the helicopters too, man. It's just like classic bad guy stuff. He's just sitting there, classic big dude stuff, right? He's just like, cracks his neck. And then the big one for me is when he's in the helicopter and Cruise finally comes up and goes, we'll talk about all the action in a couple minutes. But Cruise comes up from underneath him. And when he figures out that it's Cruise is like, yeah, let's go. And Cavill does this thing, man, where he looks at him and Cruise is almost saying, I'm here, let's go. And he goes, all right. And he leans into the back and gets like that Gatling gun and starts shooting. But that like, all right, let's do this. Look, oh my God, dude, like nails it. It's so cinematically perfect. And the same, man, from the scream to just the look of his face when they get down to that final battle, it boom, like the villain is born right in front of us for a great toe-to-toe little match with Tom Cruise. And unfortunately, we won't get to see Cavill reprise this villain role. Cavill falls back into the category of the old Mission Impossible villains that go bye-bye. We will talk about his bloody end, which is great during that sequence. But nevertheless, it is so satisfying too when it happens. You're like, oh man, you know what, Cavill, you earned that death, man. We're not bringing you back like Solomon Lane, who could be coming back again. He's going back to jail. Solomon Lane ain't dead yet. But I just absolutely loved Henry Cavill being the bad guy. It suits him so well. Now, obviously, on top of that, we got to talk about like the guy, Tom Cruise, right? This dude, he's not made up of normal stuff, man. I mean, this guy is like crazy, and we said this in my non-spoiler, right? Like where, like Tom Cruise is at a point in his career where he's so crazy that like he might actually die one day doing one of these things. But at the same time, it's not just all about the action. We'll dive into all the action, all the crazy, real things that Tom Cruise did during this movie. But the thing I love about him, man, you can't sleep on Tom Cruise. He is such a good actor. And this movie doesn't have a ton of exposition story. It does have a really good spy plot. The twists and turns match the spy movie to be everything you want it to be. When that Henry Cavill reveal happens, you get that pop that you want in a spy film. But there's a whole lot going on with Ethan Hunt in this movie, right? I mean, he's still reeling from almost allowing Solomon Lane to have possession of like actual nuclear launch codes. He stopped him once, and then this one, he loses 3 pieces of plutonium that could very well end back up in the hands of Solomon Lane. And there is this whole inner monologue story going on inside of Ethan Hunt that we're not hearing out loud, but if you were watching Tom Cruise, you were seeing it unfold in front of your face, through his face, man. The whole movie, the weight of the decisions and things that he does in this movie, you just feel it the whole time. And every time he runs into an obstacle, he kind of does one of these like, I'll figure it out. Like, how are you going to do this? I'll figure it out. And he just keeps going and going and going because he has to. And it's this whole kind of story of Ethan kind of dealing with the conflictual things that he has going on in constantly choosing one life over millions. And the one life decisions that he makes in this one, it's saving Ving Rhames' Luther. Saving Luther puts 3 pieces of plutonium out in the world that could end up causing catastrophic damage, and all of that is just shown through his face the whole movie. What Cruise does body language wise in this flick really stands out and kind of gives Ethan a story that's not necessarily written down for Tom to say out loud. All the odds are stacked against Ethan Hunt in this one, And yet he just keeps pushing, and it drives. And that wear and tear on Cruise's face finally starting to show as he starts to show a little age, man. This guy's been ageless for years. Finally starting to show a little wear and tear. And I think that even adds to what he is doing in the movie. Like I said, you can't forget that he's not all stunts, man. Tom Cruise is a top-end actor, and he gives you top-end stuff here with little exposition, and it's really awesome to watch. Now, there's one more thing to talk about. I know I talked a lot in my non-spoiler review about like locations and just this unbelievable scenery that they use throughout the movie. But there's one shot in this flick, man, that is just, it stands out so big and bold. It's just gorgeous. You go into this club. It's like a nightclub kind of deal. You got techno music and lights and whatever. And Cruise is going to meet up with the White Widow at this point. And when he's going there, her club is like in a different area of this place. And you kind of go through this hallway, and then you end up in this place that's like right out of the 1940s. Totally different scene than the techno club. But the transition to get there is this hallway full of mirrors, and they're all kind of slanted. So with the lights going, and when they walk up and down, oh my God, man. You see it, I believe you see it a little bit in the trailer. But oh man, you see it I think twice in the movie where they're walking. It is just gorgeous. So even when you're not dealing with real life sceneries or places, building out an actual set, you still get unbelievably beautiful, gorgeous imagery. All right. I've wasted enough time not talking about the action scenes. And there are a few to get to in this one, and they're all a whole lot of good. So we'll start right at the top. And I don't want to take anything away from this scene. But, McQuarrie knows what he's doing. This is the scene that one of the scenes that everyone was talking about early on before this movie even got out there. Tom Cruise doing hundreds and hundreds of halo jumps, right? Having to wear get a special mask, all these things. Behind how difficult it was to do this, man. They built there's an awesome behind the scene. There's like 4 of these things out there. You find all these things. But the halo jump, man, they built the biggest like wind tunnel ever. To create the right amount of air to be able to practice all the maneuvers because you're jumping from 25,000 feet and you are free falling for 23,000 feet. The whole concept of a halo jump is high altitude so that you're above where like radars and things can pick you up, and you're releasing your chute low. So high out, low release, 2,000 feet from the ground so that you're underneath the stealth coverage. And, so you're free falling for 23,000 feet. And the choreography and stuff in the scene, when you're watching it, your heart is literally in your throat the whole scene because you're like, this is really happening. And they add in some CGI storms so that Henry Cavill's character can get hit with lightning. Cool side note on this, Henry Cavill has 2 brothers, both served in the military, have both done halo jumps, something he wanted to do. And what was really cool is you see Cavill a lot. He does a lot of his stunts in this movie. But Cavill wanted to do the stunt, and Cruise said, hey man, like I've been training for a long time on my own dime. To be ready for this thing. And in all honesty, if you go out there and do these stunts, someone's going to die. And Cavill totally respected that. I was like, all right, man, that means I got to go do my own stuff. I loved hearing that. But this scene, man, like what they CGI in is really, really well done. And the maneuvering and the camera shots are just stuff that you've never seen. And it's one of the first big pieces of action that we get. Unfortunately, or fortunately, McQuarrie puts one of these things that was one of the most hyped, talked about scenes in the whole movie at the beginning, because everything that comes after it just gets better and better. So you get this brilliant looking piece of cinema, getting shots that you've never seen before, doing this thing that is actually happening. It's the thing with Cruise, you just know it's happening. That's so cool. While he's tucking and rolling and free falling. But it's not even the best bit of action in this movie. Now, shortly after this, you get probably the best fight in the entire movie, and that takes place inside of that bathroom scene that we've seen in the trailers as well. Liang Yang, who plays the Lark decoy, dude, does he shine in this sequence. Now, this whole bathroom is built to be like destroyed, and we get an unbelievably choreographed sequence where Liang Yang is going toe-to-toe with both Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill, and he's doing a lot of damage, man. He is awesome in this sequence. He has Cavill almost unconscious for a little bit, and at death's door, he's got Tom Cruise staring at a pipe right to the neck. And And it ends up that as both of them are like about to be done for, Rebecca Ferguson shows up, shoots him in the head. And then you get this awesome little play where like people come into the bathroom, there's all this blood on the floor. They put him in like one of the stalls, and Rebecca Ferguson just grabs Henry Cavill's face and is like, tilt your head back, pinch your nose, acting like it's like a bloody nose, and the amount of blood on the floor is like enough for a whole human body. It's a really, really funny thing, as well as like Tom and Cavill and Rebecca all slipping on the blood multiple times coming out. It's such a fun fight sequence that you're like, oh man, that was even better than what we've already gotten. Where are we going next? Where we're going next is one of the longest stretches of the movie of just pure joy in action and watching Tom Cruise be Tom Cruise at his finest. He gets brought into this group with like the White Widow, where they're supposed to break out Lane. And White Widow's brother wants to do this thing where they're basically going to kill all these cops. Tom Cruise can't have that. So he comes up with his own plan that as they force Lane's, Lane's being transported from one prison to another. After he's arrested in Rogue Nation, pretty much everybody wants a piece of Lane, and he's just going from country to country, paying for all his sins. And they have to break him out. So Cruise does that hit with the truck, pops him into the water. We get that really cool shot of the water coming over Lane's face. I don't know how they figured out how to do that or to get that shot, but it is gorgeous. The MIF come in and they take Lane out, and they're the ones that end up kidnapping him. And then Cruise goes on just an unbelievable chase sequence where he starts out on the motorcycle. Oh my gosh, man. This motorcycle scene, like Rogue Nation's motorcycle scene, was one of my favorite pieces of action that I'd seen in years. And Cruise followed it up big time with this one, man. He is flying down streets, down tight corners, spinning out. He's doing everything you could think of. And the score is just building and building and building the whole sequence until he's right in front of the big roundabout out in Paris. He's going opposite direction. Watch the behind the scene thing. That traffic is driving in the opposite way, and he is weaving in and out all these cars. And this thing goes on for like 10 minutes, and you're just like, wow, all right, Christopher McQuarrie, you and Tom Cruise outdid yourself again with one of the most unbelievably stunning motorcycle sequences I've ever seen. And then we're not done, because we get to the end of that, and Cruise finally gets to where all of his guys are. They get Lane, he gets in the car, and a chick on a motorcycle shows up. Now, he doesn't know it's Rebecca Ferguson yet, but we all do. And Rebecca Ferguson is chasing them, and now we're in a car chase. So now Ferguson is on a motorcycle. Cruise is driving a car with Benji and Luther in the back, Lane in the front seat. We get this wild car chase scene, and McQuarrie does this awesome bit where he drops the score out for this part of the chase. And we get a shot when Rebecca Ferguson is like running through this kind of tunnel, and you hear the air whipping by, like, oh man, it's such a cool sound because it's natural. And just the no score during this whole bit, you get to hear her motorcycle changing a lot. You hear the car revving and changing. Cruise does this thing where he flies off of these stairs and spins the car and lands into, oh my gosh, man, it's unbelievable. And all of this is wrapped into one giant chase that takes almost 20 minutes. It's unreal choreography, action, stunt chasing, stuff you've never, like you've never felt. I mean, again, the whole time you're like, oh my god, man, like Tom Cruise could die doing this, and that always adds to every scene that he's in. Then there's an unbelievable foot chase scene where after we're down in the catacombs, that's where that switch happens, and you know they're like, oh yeah, we got Lark, and Cavill's like, oh, did you? And that's when we find out for real that he's Lark. He has guys that are mixed in with the CIA guys that turn on the CIA guys, wipe all of them out. Some fighting goes back and forth. We get this awesome little bit where I love Alec Baldwin, man. He gets to fight Superman. He's laying into him, man. He's getting in some good shots. And you just see this smile come across Alec Baldwin's face where he is just having so much fun being in, with the IMF guys. And then Cavill kills him. And it hits, man. You see it and you're like, no! And this, I didn't mention this also in my non-spoiler. Jeremy Renner, not able to be there with Marvel stuff going on. They didn't know what his schedule was. Couldn't be on the shoots. By killing Alec Baldwin, you now leave a vacant spot for a secretary to be stepped in by I would hope, Jeremy Renner. Because don't don't sleep on Jeremy Renner not being in this movie. He's so good in the last two. I definitely want to see him back. And unfortunately, the dismissal of Alec Baldwin does leave a perfect opening for Renner to come back. After that, Cavill takes off, and Cruise goes chasing after him. And we get like a 5-minute Tom Cruise running chase. And it's brilliant, man. It's absolutely wonderful. I think this stuff is taking place in London. They find this epic long straightaway for him to run down on top of a building that's just, you get the shot and you're just like, damn, man, like where do they find these straightaways for Tom Cruise to go running down? And of course we also during that sequence get the broken ankle shot, and no matter how many times you see it beforehand, when you see it in IMAX on the big screen, the entire crowd's packed, whole crowd when it happened. Like you see the foot hit and you know you've seen it up close, even though that camera angle isn't showing it up close, and everybody in the crowd was like, oh, and then you see him limping by and you're like, he's really limping because it's broken. And just when you think you can't get any more out of this movie in action, we end up at that camp, that like medical camp that I was talking about. And this whole stretch, man, is just wonderful. We get some really, really cool stuff from Luther. Right before this happens, after the Rebecca Ferguson chases them with Lane, Luther sits down with Ferguson and tells, Elsa Faust that, she needs to walk away from this one. Ethan has only ever really loved two people in his life, his ex-wife and her. He's like, he won't say it out loud or admit it, but he cares a ton about you. And he's like, and where this is going, you have to walk away. Now, Ferguson has no choice. The only way that they will let her leave MI6 is to go and kill Lane. And that's what her mission is. So she can't turn. But you get this wonderful dialogue with her and Luther. That's just heartbreaking, man. Luther gets all watery talking about it. And you're just like, oh, he brings all the heart in the movie. But then in the finale, he gets this awesome stretch with Michelle Monaghan. When you show up there, as soon as they said the hospital was there, they're like, I wonder why this is in this random place. And I was like, oh, Michelle Monaghan's definitely going to be there. And sure enough, she was. And her group was hired by Lane's people so that she would be there with both nuclear weapons that Lane has, which just adds to all sorts of things. But she ends up helping Luther so the whole bit in this stretch is 2 nuclear weapons in casings that if you cut one, it'll immediately trigger the other and they'll go. So you need to defuse both bombs simultaneously while also getting the trigger, which happens to be on Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill gets away on a helicopter, which leads to some amazing Tom Cruise stuff that we'll get to in a minute. But while he's doing that, everyone else has got to find the bombs. And they find the first one fairly quickly. It's attached to like an antenna. They bring it down. Luther starts working on it, and Michelle Monaghan shows up. And Luther kind of gives her the same thing, like, get out of here. And she's like, this is a nuclear weapon. It doesn't matter. What can I do to help? And you get this great scene with her and Luther working on the bomb together, and it's brilliant. And meanwhile, Faust and Benji are out finding the other one, and Faust, basically what's so smart too, Lane is so smart. He doesn't have a ton to say expositionally in this movie, but the moves that he's making behind the scenes are brilliant. He has this medical compound there because x-ray machines and all the different medical equipment would block or throw you off from radiation scans. So Benji ends up in this room with all these cases, and he's trying to find the bomb, and he just keeps finding x-ray machine after x-ray machine, and Faust finds Lane, which is where the other bomb is. When she goes inside, Lane jumps on her, and then, oh man, Sean Harris has such an unbelievably awesome choreographed fight sequence with Elsa Faust. And what was funny is in the theater, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, I haven't. This is where I said again, I hated that Rebecca Ferguson was sidelined for so long at the beginning of the movie. Because by the end, I'm like, man, I haven't seen her do that jump up on top of the guy's neck, spin down leg armbar thing that she does. And she walks into this room with Lane, and Lane pulls her through like a wall. He kind of knocks her out pretty good. And Benji comes in, and then he gets a hold of Benji and is just beating the ever-loving crap out of him while Ferguson is tied up on a chair. And because he knocks her out, ties her up. Benji comes in and like he has him up, man. He puts a noose around his neck. He does this move where he goes like this, and Benji just drops like real hard, and you feel like Benji is in a lot of danger. And Faust does this awesome thing there where she stands up and just launches her chair sideways onto a table so it shatters. And then she gets up and kicks some ass. Oh man, she fights an awesome choreographed fight sequence with Lane until he's unconscious, and then she's able to she does a cool move where she kicks a box underneath Benji's legs, and then eventually jumps up and cuts him free. Awesome fight sequence, mixed in with some of the craziest stuff we will see Tom Cruise do in this movie. So when Cavill takes off on the helicopter, Cruise is coming after him, and the second helicopter has this big payload that it's carrying, and he jumps on and grabs the rope, proceeds to climb up the rope, gets to the top of the helicopter, goes to put his foot, and he misses, slips and free falls down. And I watched the behind the scenes on this. He free falls, man. He's attached to cords and stuff, but he has to free fall 30 feet, and it's insane. And then he climbs back up, and while all this is going on, the helicopter's actually flying. He's really in the air, hundreds and hundreds of feet up, climbing up this rope real life. He's got harnesses and things, but that's so he doesn't fall off. He's doing all the rope climbing. Finally gets up, comes in, takes out, and takes this. Ends up taking the helicopter over. And then this is where you find out that Tom Cruise, for 18 months, trained to fly a helicopter so that he could be the only one in this helicopter. And you go, Tom, you're crazy. Get a DP in there. Have someone who knows how to fly that. No. You see these shots? Man, all these beautiful IMAX shots. The whole movie is just shot in IMAX, and it's stunning, shot after shot. This stuff in the helicopter, man, you see camera angles like you've never seen before, and the only reason you get them is because Cruise is the only person in the helicopter. So you can get these cool front shots, these side shots, things from inside, and the whole time he's flying this helicopter, man. And this helicopter chase scene is insane. And again, I went after the movie. I went back and I watched the behind the scenes, man. It was something like 8 to 10 helicopters in the air at one time. And they said that was what was most dangerous because they were all within 5 to 10 feet of each other. Every morning they would choreograph with little toy helicopters, where the helicopter was going to go and where every helicopter needed to be. You get some of the most unbelievable, breathtaking shots and unbelievable stuff from Tom Cruise. He is flying this helicopter. He is acting the scene, and he's operating all the cameras on the helicopter. And it's like a car chase, but with helicopters, to the point where he's ready to fly his helicopter in to Henry Cavill's, and they go down together and crash and end up on this mountain where both helicopters fall through this chasm and stick, and they end up climbing. Well, I guess first they fight. Yeah, and they're inside, and it's spinning and snow's going, and you're I don't know how they're shooting all of this stuff. But then they finally both climb up, and they end up with this crazy fight. Where Cavill's just massive, man. He's throwing Cruise around, but Cruise is clever. He eventually gets him on the side. They're both falling down there on the rope, kind of hanging off. The one helicopter has a latch that's attached to a cord with a hook, and it's attached to this rock, and it keeps falling, and they're on it. And ultimately Cruise jumps off, and the thing falls, and it hits Cavill right in the head. He flies down. You see him hit the rock, and you see the blood smear, and you're yeah, Cavill's never coming back. But that whole bit, man, from the helicopter to the fight, to just the stunt work that's in that sequence, to Cruise ending up on the side of a freaking mountain, free climbing again, man. And the whole time you're building, and you're building, and you're building. This whole movie is just a constant build. And you're down to everything's done. Both bombs are safe. They're ready to go. They have one wire, and they're when do we go? When do we cut? And they're we'll cut on 2. With 2 seconds left, we'll cut. And Benji's 2? What if we need that second? He's if he's gonna do it, let's do it on 1. They're isn't that close? We need every second we can get. And they cut on 1, and the bomb doesn't go off, and we cut, and we see Cruise hanging on the side. And he's got the detonator in his mouth, and and the place erupted. Absolute eruption. Now, I saw this movie twice in theaters. First time, tons and tons of crowd applause. Second time, people were just the whole movie. You could hear a pin drop because of the way people were sucked in. That's the type of experience this movie gives you, man. It gives you the cheer-worthy action and adventure that you want in a spy flick like this, and it gives you suspense to the point where you can't breathe or talk or move. Absolutely brilliant Mission Impossible movie. Easily, by far and away, the best one. Some of the best work Tom Cruise has ever done. I loved everything about this movie. And like I said, man, watch the behind the scenes stuff and seeing Cruise do this and how they get these shots. I can't wait for the full documentary I'm sure they'll have on the DVD, because it's why the dude's not human. He's not human, man. He just is crazy, and at 56 years old, it so pays off so so well. So that's it, man. That's everything I have to say about Mission Impossible Fallout. We've emptied the tank. Now it is your turn. All the spoilers you want, man. Dive into all the things you love about this movie. What were your favorite parts? What's your favorite action scene? When did Tom have you on the edge of your seat the most? Hit those comments. Let me know all your thoughts. As always, if you like this video and the Seaman, please give me a thumbs up. Puts a smile on my face. And as always, if you're new here, hit that subscribe and little bell so you get alerts every time I make a new video. For the Seaman's Cinema Sit-Down, I'm the Seaman, and I'm signing off. Peace! Oh, hey, what's up, guys? You're still here? Well, if you are, you might as well check out another video like this one or this one. And if you're new and haven't, would you please hit the subscribe button? See ya!